And even rock star party animal Elton John had to sit up and take notice.
To date, 70 out of every 100 AIDS cases have involved homosexuals. Not surprisingly then, AIDS was quickly dubbed the gay plague.
I read about it in a newspaper in the early 80s, and then 2 or 3 people very close to me got it very early in the history of AIDS and died very quickly of AIDS. When I was aware of AIDS, and a lot of my friends were dying, I wish I'd have done more politically to help AIDS, and that's when Elizabeth Taylor stepped to the forefront, when Rock Hudson was very ill, and spoke out in a very, very strong manner.
These people are walking around with a noose around their necks. They are living time bombs.
I didn't speak out in a very strong manner, and I think it was a very weak thing of me not to have done. I know I was taking a lot of drugs at the time, but I mean, when I look back at it, I don't understand why I didn't become more angry. I was angry, but I don't understand why I didn't actually get into the fray a little bit more. And I'm quite ashamed of that, to be honest with you.
We die, they do nothing! We die, they do nothing!
I was in a throat specialist somewhere in New York, and I picked up Newsweek, and I read about Ryan White, who was a schoolboy who was infected by a blood transfusion. I was so incensed about this little boy. You know, people were throwing bricks through his window, fire bombs at his house.
I became the target of Ryan White jokes. Lies about me biting people, spitting on vegetables and cookies in grocery stores, and urinating on bathroom walls. Some restaurants threw away my dishes, and my locker was vandalized inside, and folders were marked fag and other obscenities.
That's the level of ignorance about this disease at that time, that I got in touch with his family and was able to help them to move to another town.
Elton's financial help couldn't slow the deterioration of Ryan's health. In 1990, he rushed to visit his young friend for a final time.
I spent the last week of his life in the hospital at Indianapolis with him and his family, and I learned a lot there. I learned about forgiveness, I learned about dignity, I learned about how my life was in complete disarray and how self-obsessed and how horrible my life was compared to these people who had nothing.
Ryan died of pneumonia on the 8th of April 1990. His funeral was packed out with well-wishers and friends, and Elton performed Skyline Pigeon in his honour.
Fly away, skyline pigeon, fly towards the dreams you left so very far behind.
The way his family and he handled his illness just showed me how completely out of whack my life was. And so when I did get sober, I thought, you know what, I've wasted so much time, spent so much money on useless things, that I've got to do something positive with my life. And about a year after I got sober, when I was, you know, compass medicine strong and I felt really strong enough to do something, I thought, you've been chairman of a football club, you know how to run something, start a foundation of your own.
In 1992, 2 years after Ryan's death, the Elton John AIDS Foundation was born.
I started by giving royalties away from records, singles. Sacrifice, I think, was the first one.
Sometimes I get a little angry about this disease. In fact, I get a little angry about it all the time. I've had so many friends of mine who've died of it, so many friends of mine are dying of it. And I wish sometimes that the governments of some countries and of the drug companies especially would show a little more compassion.
for our first AIDS Foundation Oscar party. We thought when we raised $100,000 that we'd really arrived.
I love giving respect to people that do great things, and everybody here, you know, has done great things, and this is a great cause.
The whole point, to be brutal, is to raise the money. Through the years that we've been going, we've now raised over $130 million, and we've distributed a lot of that money to 50-odd countries around the world.
No more of your dog.
Once you see results and you go and see for yourself, as I have done in Africa and other places that we've given money to, that it helps people and the stigma is erased because you've given money and people learn about it. Because in certain places like South Africa, you know, it was like AIDS is caused by poverty. Bullshit, it's not, you know.
Nelson Mandela publicly said that he'd just lost his son to AIDS, and where Chief Buthelezi has lost 2 sons to AIDS, and you'd think that people would still get over that stigma because, you know, they're not poor people.
Another reason why I formed the foundation was because I was given a second chance. A, through my addiction, which, you know, the amount of stuff I took, I shouldn't be here anyway. And B, the amount of situations, perilous situations I put myself in as far as a sexual quality, then I shouldn't be here either. So, I mean, I'm the luckiest person in the world. I got 2 bites at the cherry again. So, that's a terrible faux pas, isn't it? Can I have 2 bites at your cherry, please?
Since becoming successful, Elton John has loved collecting expensive works of art. Some of them masterpieces.
I had a good sense of art until I started getting into drugs. When I sold everything in 1989, everything I bought before I really got heavily into drugs was still great. And everything I bought on drugs was pretty awful. And I had to own up to that. It's like, oh, God, I bought that, you know.
In 2003, a clean and sober Elton cleared his house and sold £1.4 million worth of unwanted art.
Oh, lovely stuff, Elton. I mean, look at this. Oh! Shit.
But following his mega clearance, Elton saw the perfect excuse to go wild for a new medium.
I think I have 5,000 photographs at least. Now, this was the first really expensive photograph I bought. I think it was 120-something thousand pounds in 1992. This is Man Ray, of course, and it's a woman with glass tears. That's better. I thought I'd probably gone stark raving mad because it was at that time a world record for a photograph.
This watercolour is one of Elton's proudest possessions. However, it was a gift from another member of rock's royalty, Queen frontman Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury had a passion for beautiful drawings and paintings as well. I mean, even when he was dying at his house, I used to go around there and sit there, which was really hard because he was really ill, but he just loved having his auction catalogues around there. And things would be arriving. He said, darling, I've just bought this. And it's like, why are you doing it? He said, because I love it. The year that he died, at Christmas, someone gave me this parcel wrapped in a beautiful pillowcase, and inside was a Henry Scott Tuke watercolour. And it said, Dear Sharon, thought you'd love this, Melina, because that was our names. And it was one of the most touching things anyone's ever done for me. The fact that he thought of me as he was dying and bought this painting because he knew that I loved Henry Scott Tuke. I still got the pillowcase next to my bed, and my Henry Scott Tuke's on an easel that he gave me. It's fantastic. What a great gift. What a beautiful thought.
Of all the people that know Elton, one man has been both his biggest rival and his best mate.
Rod Stewart, the biggest tart in show business. One of the funniest things that ever happened was he had a promotion. He was playing Earl's Court, and he had kind of a mini airship above Earl's Court. And I asked someone to find someone who would be willing to shoot it down. And he was in London at the time, and I phoned him up and said, listen, you know, can you see your airship from where you are? And he went, yes. I said, I bet you can't now. And of course it was, you know, I think it came down over a bus. There's some great footage on the David Frost programme. We went on the early morning show before we went to the cup final Manchester United in Brighton. And it was hilarious. I just destroyed him.
I'm not going with you dressed like that, I can assure you.
Why not?
With that on, I'm not going with that hat on.
Why not? Look at you.
It's a state of my...
Looks like Dusty Springfield in The Nightmare. 15 plus.
And it's just a very unique relationship between two artists. A love-hate relationship, but it's 90% love and 10% hate.
1994 was a landmark year for Elton.